All right, so we're at 5.1. We're going to graph one inequality. So a couple of things we know before we start. Number one, the line type you're going to have is based on how it looks. So without an equal sign, it's going to be a dash or a dotted line that we draw. And then if it does have the half equal sign, then it's a solid one. Now if it's dash or dotted, it does not include the line. So like when we figure out answers later, it doesn't include it. And then solid will include the line when we have to write out answers. So the shade direction is we're going to be using the y-axis. So if the mouth is facing the y, then we shade up, or we shave above the y-intercept. If it's not facing the y, then we shade below the y-intercept, okay? So basically what I'm trying to say here is if I have my coordinate plane here, this is my y-axis. If the mouth is facing my y, then I shade above my y-intercept because it's saying the y's are bigger. If the mouth is facing away, then I'm saying the y is the smaller, so I have to shade below the y-intercept, all right? So the first thing we're gonna do, and I'm just gonna do these first two with you, is just figuring out the line type and the shade direction. All we're focusing on is this part right here. So this tells me I'm going to have a solid line when I draw. And then the y is the bigger, so I'm going to shade above because that mouth is facing that y. That's why it's bigger, so we shade above. So I already have the line graphed for you in this first side here, so that's kind of nice. So because it's solid, my line is going to be solid, just like this. All right, and then it says to shade above. So here's my line. I'm shading everything above that. All right, so make sure that shading is very good. You cover the entire area when you do it. In the next one here, in number 2, we have just a mouth. So this is going to be a dotted or a dashed line here. And this y is the smaller, so this is going to tell me to shade below. So when I say it's dashed, again, this is already graphed for me, so I don't even have to be figuring that out right now. When I say dashed, that means when I graph it, I'm going to have dashed lines. See how my colored pencil isn't touching? I'm picking it up, taking some space, and putting it down. I'm dashing it, okay? So I'm dashing it. I hope you guys can tell that it's dashed. When I say dashed, I kind of mean like this. Doot, doot, doot. And then solid is like this, okay? So this is telling me to shade below. So when I shade below, I'm going to shade everything below that line because I'm saying all the lower y's. All right, and make sure you cover the entire area. Okay, so dashed, solid. I'm sorry, solid because I have the half equal sign. This one was dashed because I do not have that half equal sign. I know it's kind of hard to tell, so I apologize. But that's what I mean when I say dashed or dotted. All right, looking at the other side. So now we're going to complete all of the graphing on our own. So we actually have to figure all the things out too. So think back. If you need to pause, go ahead and write this down at the bottom. But we have y equals mx plus b. M is your slope. If your slope is a positive up top, you move up. If it's negative up top, you go down. If it's positive on the bottom, you go right. If it's negative on the bottom, you go down. Remember, it's always going to be a fraction. Okay? Always a fraction. The b, or the y-intercept, or your constant, is your y-intercept, and this is always on the y-axis, okay? Looking at number 7 here, let's first figure out our slope and y-intercept. So my slope is 2 over 3, and my y-intercept is -1, include the sign. Now, this tells me, this -1 tells me on my y-axis, I'm going to put my first point there. You always do that at -1. 2 over 3, they're both positive. So this 2 up top, because we're positive at the top here, we go up, and this tells me to go right because we're positive on the bottom. So up 2, right 3, up 1, 2, right 3, and keep that until you can't do it anymore. And then I'm gonna go in the opposite direction. If you remember, the opposite direction is literally opposite. So instead of going up to right 3, I'm gonna go down to left 3, down to left 3, down to left 3. And it should be a straight line. See how this is beautiful and straight? Amazing, I know. Now I need to figure out, I have to figure out if it's dotted or solid. I have the half equal sign, so I know this is going to be solid. So I'm going to draw a solid line. And then my Y here, the mouth faces away, so it's smaller. So this says I'm going to shade below. So here's my line. From my Y, I'm going to shade below. I'm shading all the Y's below that Y-intercept. And make sure you cover the whole box. Sorry, my shading got a little sloppy. Now let's look at number 8 here. So my slope is the number in front of my X. So technically, I have a -1 in front of my X. Now it's just a -1, but I need to make it a fraction. So if I take any number that is not a fraction, I put it over 1, and now it's a fraction. This tells me to go down and right. The Y-intercept is this -2. So let me plot that -2 first, because that's always on the Y-axis. That doesn't change. This tells me go down 1, right 1. So from here, I'm going to go down 1, right 1. And I'm going to do that until I can't do that anymore. Now, I'm going to go in the opposite direction. So if I went down 1 and right 1 from my Y-intercept, I'm going to go up 1, left 1. And again, I'm going to continue that pattern until I can't anymore. Now that I have all that, I'm going to look at this. This inequality does not have the half equal sign, so this is going to be a dashed line. And my Y is smaller, so I'm going to go below. Dashed, this is what I mean by dashed. Dashed, dashed, dashed. And then I'm going to shade below all the lower Y-intercept, or everything below the Y-intercept. And that's how you do that.